Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to exit highly appreciated assets, defer millions of dollars of capital gains tax so you can create and preserve more wealth, or help your clients, friends, and family do the same. For those who don't know me, my name is Brett Swartz. I am founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions, and I am your host today. And each episode, we are joined by some of the best real estate, financial, business, and wealth minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together, we make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming, by the way, on Expert CRE Secrets podcast as well, and YouTube channel. So we appreciate all of the listeners there. I'm excited about our next guest. He is an entrepreneur. He is helping people be empowered, to have financial peace of mind. He's out of the Chicagoland area. He has an awesome brother that I interviewed about a year and a half ago. And so please welcome to the show with me, Daniel Kwok. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah. So one of my big pet peeves is when I listen to a podcast and I hear the guy like go on and on about a story. So I'll be sure to be more efficient with my words and kind of sharing who I am. So long story short, I immigrated to this country at the age of 5 years old. And, for anyone that knows about immigrant life, it's definitely not a financially easy road. We came to this country with pretty much nothing. And, fast forward, I always say when you grow up poor, you learn poor. And so I found myself being 18 years old, negative $187.65 in my bank account, had a maxed out credit card, was going to school at the time as a freshman in college. But around that time, I read an article from Forbes magazine that says that a mass majority, I think it was like 84% of people in the top 1% made their money investing in real estate. And so I said, man, that's what I got to get into. And I've always had dreams of doing a lot of philanthropic work and building hospitals and schools, et cetera, in Africa. And so I said, man, I got to go down that road. And so got into real estate. I learned about real estate investing for 3 years. I didn't do a single deal. I just focused on reading books, listening to podcasts, going to many networking events and conferences as much as I could. And before you know it, as a result of that, by the time I was 23, I had 87 rental doors, and then eventually got into buying businesses and scaling companies with my brother. And today I'm 29 as the visionary and CEO for the Kwok Brothers organization. So that's my story in a nutshell, my friend.
Daniel, it's an amazing story. We're going to tie that into ensuring financial peace with Daniel Kwok. And by the way, if you want to connect with Daniel right now, you can go to his Instagram. The handle is the Daniel Kwok, and that's KWAK. Or you can go to thekwokbrothers.com, thekwokbrothers.com. Daniel, before we dive into the subject today, I do want to take one other step back. I believe you've all been given certain gifts, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. I'm curious, during those tough times growing up with less than financial means, what was the one or two gifts that you found you have perhaps been given and blessed with, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
Yeah, so I'll say two things. So one of the things my parents instilled in me from a very young age is I was always told to dream big regardless of what your financial or resourceful situation is, right? So and so I tell people all the time, because for me, I'm a follower of Christ and a very avid Christian. And I tell people a lot of times, especially the Christian entrepreneurs, and I tell them, it's like, you can't believe in a God, you can't serve a God, you can't claim to follow a God that's so big and yet dream so small. I think we live in a world where God wants to do amazing things in this world, and he wants to use us to be able to accomplish those things. It's just whether or not we're listening and we're willing to step into those things. And 99% of us truly are not. And we won't. We say we do, but we actually won't, because a lot of us are geared and we work for the life of comfort as opposed to the life of purpose, passion, and wanting to impact people around us. So that's one of the things my parents instilled in me at a very young age. And the second was, strangely enough, this is a trait that has helped me not only become a great leader, but also a great entrepreneur, a great problem solver, and just a great businessman in general, which of course I'm sure you talk about on many different episodes, will lead to phenomenal monetization opportunities. So that one trait I'd say is empathy. And there's a great quote that I wrote down in my journal yesterday, which is that good ideas come from output, but great ideas come from input. And what I mean by that is we have output. So we have things that we say, we have things that we do, we have things that we produce. And when we look at those things, and a lot of good entrepreneurs do this, we look at all the things we've done the last 7 days, the last 21 days, the last quarter, whichever, however many years, and we ask ourselves, okay, how can I do the exact same thing, but at a higher level and quality? But also, how do I do it more efficiently and faster and way less headache, and much more ease? So good ideas do that. They make our production much more efficient and much easier. However, great ideas come from empathy, which is input. Is, hey, how often are we slowing down and listening to feedback from other individuals? And how empathetic are we in listening to the problems of other individuals? Because again, most great companies that we've seen come and go, or are still around today, especially, have been originated from someone looking at the market, listening, being empathetic, and then creating a product and service, and then making that product or service sexier with an offer, and then creating an organization, and blah 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 blah. But it all started from that individual looking at the market and being empathetic on what the true problems really were. So I learned that trait very early on, the aspect of empathy, and I'm a very relational individual, period. So I think that's probably a skill that has served me tremendously in being able to put other people in best positions to succeed.
Daniel, it sounds like and it feels like your two major strengths are dreaming big regardless of the financial circumstances or just other circumstances, and knowing that there's a big God who has big plans for us, and we want to have faith that we can accomplish those things. And number two, it feels like it's empathy, the ability to take from and work with and understand others so that input can come in so that you can make a difference. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think empathy is probably the number one leadership trait that I look for in other people, and a litmus test on whether or not they're going to be successful. It actually is the litmus test for me on whether a leader is actually leading out of love or leading out of fear.
Beautiful. And with that in mind, let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is ensuring financial peace. So Daniel, what is the number one secret to ensuring financial peace?
Yeah, for me, it has to be the individual, right? So when I think about financial peace, I think, that really that line right there is a big part of our vision, right? So the vision that my brother and I have for all our companies, whether it's Accelerated Banking, where we help people pay off their mortgage, whether it's First Deal Mentor, where we help people get into rental properties, it's ensuring them, it's empowering and equipping people to have a financial peace of mind. And what I mean by that is a financial peace of mind doesn't necessarily mean you have $20 million in the bank account. Sometimes it could be that family who has credit card debt, they may not have as much income, but man, they just discovered, whether it's through us or somebody else, right? They just discovered the strategy and the path forward on how their kids will not have the exact same problems that they're having, right? So financial peace, again, it's not about being rich. It's not about being wealthy, but it's about having the knowledge and the understanding and the plan and the strategy to know that, hey, all my financial needs are taken care of. And now I'm freed up to go and do the things that God asked me to do in this world, whether it's, helping a nonprofit, whether it's raising up your kids, the next generation, right? Whatever it is. I think a lot of people listening to this show, a lot of people just in general, I have an assumption and a hunch that what we do to make a living is not what we want to do to create a difference, to make a difference, to make an impact. And, there's a great quote, by Terry Crews of all people, right? Like the guy who's, singing, making my way downtown, right? And White Chicks, right? That I heard a quote from him, which was really interesting. He says, don't focus on making a living, focus on making an impact and make a difference. And I think for us, that's what our vision's all about, is allowing people, giving the tools and giving them the mindset and the education and the training and whatever they need to help people get freed up financially so they can go out and do other things with their time. And by the time they're on their deathbed, be able to say, I did everything I wanted to do in my life. I've impacted everybody that I wanted to impact in my life. I've done and created differences of things that I wanted to do in my life. Like that for me is worth getting out of bed, as opposed to, well, let me just go ahead and make more money doing a deal, or let's have another great day of revenue. I'll be very, very honest. That does not get me out of bed. But the first thing we talked about, yeah, that will do it 100% of the time.
Amazing. So we're talking about empowering and equipping with a mindset and the tools necessary to gain financial peace of mind. It's not just a number; it's actually financial peace of mind. It could be 20 million in the bank. It could be $200,000 in the bank. It's empowering and equipping for all of those things. Great. Number two. What is the number two secret to ensuring financial peace?
Yeah, no, it has to be. Do you surround yourself with people? And that's one of the things we do so well in our companies. Do you surround yourself with people who have the same vision? There's a great scripture and there's a verse in the Bible where it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And I think a lot of people perish financially for that exact reason. At the end of the day, we can get into the mumbo jumbo, and I'm sure you do with a lot of other episodes about certain tax strategies, certain real estate creation strategies, certain cash flow strategies. And, our companies teach that, and I implement it myself with my wife and I and our family finances, and my brother does as well. But at the end of the day, if someone's not constantly learning and they don't have a system in place where they're continuing to learn and do all those things, then it's virtually impossible for someone to obtain that financial freedom, to obtain that financial peace. There's a great quote by James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits. He says, don't rise to the level of your confidence, rise or fall to the level of your systems and your preparation. And I think that applies to so many different areas of your life. And same thing in my story, right? Before I had my breakout year where, I acquired 75 units in 1 year, January 1st of that year, my mentor told me, he's like, Daniel, stop setting goals, set standards and expectations. Therefore, you can reverse engineer what needs to be done every single day. And I think success is a compound equation of little things that are done every single day over a longer period of time, consistently, and with excellence. I think that concepts apply probably more in when it comes to finances than anything else. Like if you look at the disparity in income between races, right? And I'm gonna go there. I know it's 2023 and everyone's super sensitive, but I'll go there, right? Let's call it what it is, right? There's certain communities in our country that their average credit score is lower, their income is lower, and all those different things. And then there's other communities in our country where that's not the case. It's actually the complete opposite. You look at the differences between those two communities, and like one community, they constantly they're talking ideas. There's a higher level of education expectation. There's, the nuclear family is more intact. And so I don't think it's an accident that, these concepts proven over hundreds and hundreds of years have played themselves out. And we can use those same concepts to apply to our very own lives as well. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think you kind of get what I'm communicating.
Absolutely. It sounds like surrounding yourself with people who have the same vision and the same standards and expectations for excellence. And that's going to naturally help you to level up and to overcome and ensuring financial peace. Daniel, what is the number three secret to ensuring financial peace?
Yeah, I always say cash flow over accumulation. That's a concept that I've learned very early on. Now I'm only 29 years old, right? But I've seen it play out over the 11 years I've been an entrepreneur. That's an answer that I've certainly heard 99, I mean, arguably almost 100%. Not that it's super accurate, right? Like it's 99.38% of the time I heard this from some of the greatest minds that I have chosen and been intentional to surround myself with. Whether they're owners of sports teams, whether they own a very successful business, whether they're a W-2 worker, but the way they manage their finances have allowed them to retire 15, 20 years early, right? So those are the type of people that have told me that the concept is cash flow over accumulation. Our mentality of the average American is to work for a long period of time, save up, accumulate, and then finally, when we're 65 years old, we dump the sum of the accumulation for the last 30, 40 years into an investment opportunity that will allow us to live out our quote unquote golden years, or save enough to be able to live off for the rest of our golden years, so to speak. And markets, concepts, philosophies, our very own economy has proven that that is absolutely not the case. Right. I mean, I think there's statistics out there that say, 2/3 of Americans couldn't survive a $500 expense. I think the average, I mean, I'm sure you would know this number. But the average amount that the average American has saved by the time they're 65 is nowhere near what they need to be able to retire comfortably. And so we're now entering into an era where universal basic income has become a serious conversation because of things like that happening. So I think if people focused more on, hey, how do I collect streams of income? How do I accumulate cash flow, as opposed to how do I just save my money or accumulate my money, where then I could put in the bank and then the bank goes off and invests it and makes more money off of the person's money in the first place, right? I think that's one of the primary concepts, that people could look at their own finances and figure out what they can change to align with that principle. I think 15, 20, 30, 40 years from now, we'd be having a much different conversation.
Daniel, couldn't agree with you more. Sounds like cash flow over accumulation, right? I do know that the average millionaire has 7 different income streams. So instead of saving up like a big pile of money just to be invested into an income stream or to become a cash flow machine, why don't you build up cash flow machines, accumulate those so that you can replace and have some financial peace, because you're not dependent on just one, active, it's either W-2 or even just as a business owner too. Like, you might be making great income, but guess what? If you can diversify and get other income streams, that is a great way to have financial peace. Is that a fair summary, Daniel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. So let's dive in. Let's geek out a little bit about tax right now. I think a lot of people are if they're tuning into our podcast for a number of things, but I'm curious to get your take on the biggest frustration when it comes to capital gains tax and the 1031 exchange, because you are an expert real estate investor and you teach others how to do this. So I'm curious, Daniel, what would you say is the biggest frustration when it comes to capital gains tax deferral on the sale of businesses, crypto, stock, primary homes, and the 1031 exchange as it pertains to investment real estate sales?
Yeah, so I'll speak on just real estate investing, because that's the area that I'm the expertise in. And, really any other areas when it comes to like stocks, bonds, crypto, I wouldn't call myself anywhere near an expert, right? If anything, I should probably be sitting in the rooms listening to the experts talk. But my biggest frustration that I've personally seen as an individual who has exited large apartment complex deals, as individuals who have talked to sellers. And it's funny because, over the last 6 months, the sellers that I've spoken to, it seems like there's more 1031 interest than it's been in a long time. And I think a lot of that's because prices of assets have grown tremendously over the past 4 to 5 years. And they see the capital gains tax bill that's ahead. And for me, a biggest frustration with even the whole concept of capital gains taxes, well, I guess taxes in general, right? If you think about the concept of what this country was founded on, I mean, we went to war over what, a 2% tax. Now our ordinary income's at like 37, our capital gains at 25. Like, it's insane. But for me, I look at the incentive. What is the financial incentive for people to do what they're doing? And that's why I love capitalism so much, is because it's a system that's predicated on incentivizing people to do the right thing. And for me, when you're talking about slapping on a quarter tax for real estate investors, increasing the value of their building. And I understand there's cyclical forces in which appreciation of an asset happens based on external forces. But if you think about what most real estate investors have done, especially in the syndication industry over the last 5-7 years, let's call it, it's really been the idea of a value add strategy. Let's buy a distressed building. Let's make it look nicer. Let's increase the income for that reason. And let's go ahead and sell it or hold it, right? But if you think about what people get dinged on, and it's the capital gain. So there's really no incentive with the capital gains tax, especially if you have a president in the White House who's wanting to increase capital gains taxes. The incentive for guys like me and guys like you to go into these distressed buildings and make it look nicer. And, a lot of the socialist progressive individuals at this point would say, well, you're making money by raising the rent. Well, yes, but at the same time, us as diligent and shrewd entrepreneurs know and are smart enough that we can't raise the market. We can't raise the rent past what the market is telling us to do. So by increasing the amount of quality, clean, amazing, affordable housing that we're bringing to market, that's actually going to bring the market rent down, right? That's going to actually saturate what the market rent is. So we're not only helping, it's a win-win-win scenario. So we're increasing the quality of housing. the market rent is being saturated, so it's going down. So it's helping the consumers by having quality housing and having it be more affordable. And it's a win for us because we still have a bit of a guarantee and make a spread on that. So when you introduce something like a capital gains or you're increasing it, you're really de-incentivizing that process from happening. So I'd say for me, I know it's a long answer, but for me, that's probably one of the biggest frustrations.
100%. Yeah, you've got to make it a win-win for the investor who's taking the risk, who's taking on the loan, who is going to do the work to improve housing, which is one of the top number one crises in America is affordable housing. And not affordable meaning just the government's going to subsidize, just more housing that actually is within a range where renters can rent and make sense of it with their income. Yeah. So in the 1031, I'm curious, Daniel, anything in particular, like any challenges when you've done 1031 exchanges or anything that comes to mind with that?
No, not actually for me, no. Right. Because for me, but I mean, for a lot of sellers that I'm looking at, a lot of them are 1031ing into limited partnership positions. A lot of them are doing the whole DST, right? Which for those that don't know, it's the Delaware Statutory Trust. Where you're virtually 1031ing into an LP position of a fund or a trust that's been set up by an operator. But even those things, I haven't gotten a whole lot of positive feedback from individuals that have done it. From what I hear, the returns aren't amazing, and there's a lack of control, right? So, I mean, for me personally, no. But even, yeah, I just say I'll just stick with no.
Yeah, absolutely. We call that the shotgun wedding, right? When you're getting married to a Delaware 1031 and 45 days, 180, and you're tied up for 7 to 10 years with huge fees, no control, no liquidity, no diversification, no chance to be entrepreneur and to run your own deals. And that's why we offer what's called the deferred sales trust, not to be confused with the Delaware Statutory Trust. Anyone who's listening to this, where you can be an entrepreneur. You can buy and sell real estate at any time. You can invest into liquid investments. You can exit out of crypto, primary homes, LP, GP positions, carried interest, captive insurance, and it's amazing. It needs to have $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, Mr. Daniel Crack, are you ready for the lightning round?
Actually, yeah, real quick before the lightning round, I will make this one comment. So what I will say I'm seeing with all the deals and the sellers and the people that I'm talking with that are actually in the market is there's an interesting discrepancy right now in the real estate market where sellers want to do 1031 because they want to obviously keep as much of the money that they is rightfully theirs, right? Especially after the market's gone up so much. But there's a discrepancy because not a lot of people are able to come to the table with a quote unquote legitimate offer that the sellers are wanting because the rates have gone up at a higher acceleration than what we've ever seen before. So I'm actually dealing with this now where the sellers' asking prices are still reflective of 2 years ago, a year ago even, and nobody's able to make an offer because the bank is giving them 7.25%, 8% in some cases, 9% in some cases. And so there's a giant discrepancy of sellers that are wanting a 1031, but they can't find buyers who can meet their prices to be able to do that. And so we'll see what happens. I personally think that prices in the multifamily market and the commercial real estate market will fall. I don't. Maybe there will be a crash. Maybe they won't. But I believe for me and for other individuals that are active buyers, and we're looking at great deals. I mean, gosh, in 2023 so far, I've already looked at I think 650 something deals, and we made offers on only 9 of them. And and not only that, but the offers that we made, it's like, hey, look, like it's take it or leave it. Like we can't do anything else and still keep the standards that we have for our limited partners. So again, it'll be really interesting to see. I think there will be much better buying opportunities about 6 months from now, especially for me and a lot of other people. But anyways, sorry, lightning round.
No, it's great. I actually could agree with you more. And I'm glad you brought that up. We call this the negative arbitrage, right? A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, you could borrow at less of a rate than a cap rate, right? So let's say your cap was 5.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6, depending on what you're buying. You could borrow at 3.5, 3.25, maybe 4, right? Now it's flipped, right? Or in sellers, you can't blame them because operationally they're doing well and they have some fixed debt in place. Now, if they haven't bought rate caps, that's the challenge. As soon as those expire, or if they are expired, they're going to get adjustable. And what their deal is happening is getting poisoned by bad debt, by bad adjusting debt. And you can't blame the debt because the debt has gone up by 100%, let's say in the past year. So it's stagflation what's happening for sellers who have good debt in
That's right.
place and good operations, and buyers who don't who can't make sense of the negative arbitrage. And so this is exactly why you want a backup plan and alternative for a 1031 to get the one thing back that's the most important thing, I believe, to ensuring financial peace, which is their time horizon. If you have the ability to invest when it makes sense for you, without having to take on debt that doesn't make sense for you, into assets that make sense for you, given you if you want to be passive or active, that which creates an effective capital gains tax exit plan. It's that freedom and flexibility to be an entrepreneur, to be passive or active, and to diversify and not have to take on debt. The 1031 is not your friend when you're taking on too much debt. You don't have enough liquidity. You don't have enough diversification, and you know you're overpaying for the property, right? And you couple that with the $84 trillion, which with the baby boomers is happening in the next 20 years, according to Marcus Millichap, that's passing to the millennials. And this is known as the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet, of which 3% of the total net worth in America is tied to commercial real estate. And then you have private equity in businesses and primary homes representing 50%. You have a big problem. It's a big problem that needs a great solution that's flexible and doesn't put more risk on the shoulders of families that have achieved that financial peace. Again, this is why we offer the deferred sales trust. You go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to solve all of those challenges.
Yeah. And Brett, I will say this as well. I have never seen this many assumable loan deal opportunities than ever before. I mean, there's so many sellers. I'd say probably maybe 4 out of 10 sellers that I'm communicating with have a loan that's coming due within the next 9 to 18 months. And their current rate is 4.3%, right? 3.75%. And it's coming due. It's coming due at 9 to 18 months. They're trying to get their life jackets and they're trying to roll out. A lot of them are doing 1031s. And, for me, it's like, well, if you don't find a buyer in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, good luck. Good luck to you.
I could agree with you more. And by the way, on one other point on that, the 1031 is not your friend because it has equal or greater value, which is also equal or greater debt.
Right. That's right.
And so even if they get out of that deal, if they're going to go for the 1031, they feel trapped because they go, I don't need or want any more debt. And oftentimes, so here's the other crazy thing. They might have put a deal under contract and bought it for, let's say, $3 million. Now it's worth $8 million. Right. And they might even done a cash out refi, and everyone's giving high fives because cash out refis are tax free. And all of a sudden the debt starts to go bad, right? Or it starts to adjust. And now you find yourself under a rock and a hard place because you took on so much debt that if you do not trade that or do like a deferred sales trust, and then you're going to be hammered with, if it's debt over basis, it's ordinary income tax, which is the worst. If other than that, it's capital gains tax. And so you need a team, you need a tax flow mindset, not just cash flow mindset. You need a team to help you execute these strategies in a way that gives you the freedom and the flexibility to ensure financial peace. Enough about the 1031. We geeked about that enough. Let's dive into the lightning round. Daniel, what would you say is the one piece of advice, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, and I know that's just a couple of years ago, what's the one thing you would tell yourself to do?
So 25, I'm 29 now. I'd just probably give that kid a hug. I wouldn't say anything. I'd say, hey, you are exactly where you need to be. I just give him a hug.
Fantastic. Question number 2, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Oof, I'd say, Am I Being Too Subtle by Sam Zell. He just passed away. He's one of the guys that I followed for a long time. Great book on his story and real estate, and it's a very easy book to follow because it's almost like a novel. But there's a lot of great nuggets in there about how he built, one of the largest real estate investment funds of all time.
Phenomenal. I'm going to get that book for sure. Question number 3, what are you most curious about right now?
The way and what people are driven by and why. That's, for me, is what I'm really fascinated with.
Love it. Second last question. What's the number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
So this is actually a quote that was given to me by my mentor, Joe Rankin, who's the former CEO of a company called Topgolf. Scaled it. During his tenure, he scaled it from a $30 million business to a $2.7 billion company. And he says, Daniel, cast the vision, hire really good people, and get out of the way. And periodically help them be the best version of themselves and constantly be putting them in the best position to succeed. So all in all, cast the vision, hire good people, get out of the way.
Amazing. Last question. Actually, second last question, because you're being pretty concise on these, so we got a little more time. What's the one thing that if between now and the end of the year, you can knock over this big domino for your business and make the biggest difference for your business and the impact on others?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything. We're exactly where we need to be right now. We've got the right pieces in place. Things are moving, and it's just a matter of time.
Fantastic. Great answer. Last question. After all your success, helping all the people you've helped, what would you say is the practice or habit that helps you most to stay centered in your values and encourage to charge forward to reach even higher heights?
Yeah, so there's a great quote. I think it's by Billy Graham, but he says, preach the gospel with your actions and be forgotten and then die. Or it says die and then be forgotten. And so just this idea that it's not about me. It's about something much, much greater and much, much bigger. I think that's been probably the greatest lesson that I've learned.
Amazing. Danny, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to thank you for sharing so much wisdom and insight and inspiration with us. I want to encourage you to keep using the strengths that you've been given about dreaming big, regardless of the circumstances, financially or otherwise. I believe there's a big God to make a big difference in this world and to chase after that with faith. And then number two, being empathetic, being a leader who really listens and cares and deeply connects with those that you're serving so that you can you can be even a better leader. So for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, could you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I post some great nuggets and tips on my Instagram. We just hired a company to do that for us because I am definitely not the person that would do that typically. My wife and I are very private people. But my Instagram is the Daniel Kwok. It's just my full name and then just THE in the front of it. So, that's probably, and the kwokbrothers.com. We got a lot of free stuff there as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Daniel, for being on the show. And also want to thank all of our listeners listening to us on YouTube, on the podcast, wherever you might be consuming that, for Capital Gains Tax Solutions or Expert CRE Secrets. And, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the deferred sale trust, or finding and connecting with people like Daniel Kwok, who are on a mission to help you ensure financial peace, is the best way for you to create and preserve more wealth, make an impact, and have the freedoms that ultimately you desire and can make a difference in this world. If we could be of any service to you, we'd love the opportunity. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can look for the new book that just came out, by the way. Hit Amazon, #1 bestseller, or a couple categories. Pretty cool. It's called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. And we have Kevin Henry from Shark Tank in the book and a couple other really smart people doing real estate and stuff. Go check that out on Amazon or just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We so appreciate everyone out there. We look forward to talking to you again real soon. Bye now.